Hello everyone and welcome back to Anything Joe's, a collaborative journey through the world of G.I. Joe. My name's Greg Engel.
And I'm Jaren Decker.
And we'll be your host today. Today on Anything Joe's, we are moving forward in the G.I. Joe comic book catalog with Marvel Comics G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero #2.
Heck yeah, we're up for the sequel.
That's right. Only 153 issues to go. It'll be there in no time, buddy. So, as I had said before when we talked about G.I. Joe #1, this first year is pretty much specifically focused on the original, the OG-13, the original members of the team. And it's actually pretty great because for some of these characters, it's the only chance you really get to get a glimpse of their personality. And as you'll see as we read into this issue, this is no exception. As a matter of fact, the characters that they choose to focus on, you learn a lot about them. Whereas in the first issue, they had to relay a lot of information very quickly. In this one, it is a little, you kind of get to take a breath and learn a little bit more about them.
Yeah, it's not just like one page is 4 character introductions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Actually, as we were looking at this issue, I have a very specific memory of G.I. Joe #2 as a young collector, and that is that G.I. Joe #2 was very hard to get. It is common knowledge in comic book publications in general that the first issue of any book is mass marketed. They put out tons and tons of copies because collectors historically will buy a #1 issue for a potential value, or I don't know, there's something about a #1 that makes it a collector's item, typically speaking. And G.I. Joe was no exception to that. And then when the #2 issue comes out, they cut that number way back because they anticipate that there will be a significant decline in numbers because there not that many people are actually along for the ride. They just want that key issue. But G.I. Joe, as we know, was an exception to that because G.I. Joe was a hit almost right out of the gate. And so the second issue was in a low print, was very hard to get, was one of the last issues I think I added to my collection. When I found this issue at that time, it was more valuable than the first issue. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I think over the long term, the nostalgia of having the first issue, despite how many copies are out there, or perhaps because there aren't as many copies that are in really good condition anymore, it's kind of exceeded it. There aren't a lot of issues in the G.I. Joe run in general that have a tremendous amount of value behind them. The first issue, the last issue, issue 21, which you've talked about before, a couple others here and there, but there aren't any that are like real money makers, so to speak. So at the time when the run was still going, #2 really was kind of like a hard to find, sought after issue.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've bought a lot of first issue comics. I mean, I'm not really a collector, but I will spend $3 or $4, $5, whatever it is now, to see if it's a story that I'll be invested in. And there's a lot of them that I haven't picked up since then. So that makes sense. I want to go back and track them down now because this is actually a really fun comic in general.
So let's look at the cover to G.I. Joe #2. I love the covers to these issues. This is done by Herb Trimpe, who did a tremendous amount of work for the G.I. Joe run. And I think this cover is very striking. If you reflect back on the first issue of G.I. Joe, it had a lot of reds and a lot of yellows. It was very vibrant. And this is a very stark contrast to that. It's a lot of blues, a lot of, darker. There's like this purple in the sky. I mean, if you put those two issues side by side, their like color palette there is really off the charts. So what you're looking at on the cover is you've got a 4-person team. I see Stalker, I see Snake Eyes, I see Scarlet, I see Breaker. Breaker's iconic bubblegum is one of his things that kind of gives him away. And all these figures are in their like snow outfits, which is pretty cool because would be so used to buying a figure, you never really thought about the concept of a variation in the outfit, not in these early days at least. As opposed to other toy lines and the first thing that comes to mind is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where they would be like, now you can here's the whole set, and Donatello's in a baseball uniform, and Raphael's in a hockey uniform, and so it was kind of striking to see them not in their regular suit, to see them in kind of a still a military theme like color. They're all kind of wearing the same style of outfit. So on the cover, you see the team is in a snow area. They have there's like a base that's on fire or has exploded in the back, and there's a blurb on the front that says an American research station annihilated, a Russian base destroyed. The G.I. Joe team must probe the panic at the North Pole, which is a very this has a very iconic, like that's a classic Marvel style blurb to kind of pull you in just from the rack.
And the change of font, even you have the first little bit, and then the panic at and then even the North Pole it changes, so it's really cool.
And the North Pole is like freezing; it has like icicles hanging off of it. Very, very well done. This is a great cover.
So, Greg, if I may ask, did they ever do actual figures of them in their snowsuits or no?
So, interestingly enough, there is a figure set that goes along with this. It didn't become actualized until later on, but around 2004, they started pumping out these comic book packs. And basically, what that consisted of, they would include a reprint of the comic, in this case, G.I. Joe number 2, and they would make 3 figures that were, loosely connected to the story. And in this particular comic pack that we're discussing, there were 3 figures. The first figure is a Snake Eyes in a winter outfit, because pretty similar to this, but with a little bit of a variation. They also included a Quinn figure, who we'll learn about here in this issue, or if you watched our recap of the IDW run, you might already be familiar with, or if you've ever read a G.I. Joe comic, you probably already know who I'm talking about. which was actually very notable because it's the first time Quinn had been made into an action figure, which was a very exciting time for most people. It was a figure that most diehard fans had been asking for a decade or longer, a very, very long time. The third figure in that set is a Scarlet figure, but she's in her martial arts uniform, which, as you'll see in the comic, is kind of not very pivotal to the actual storyline. I'm guessing that they were afraid to make 2 winter outfits in the same 3-pack, so kind of a miss there. The figure's also not very good, but yeah, they did a series of these, and they, for the most part, are actually very good. As far as the overall of the winter outfits, there has been a hodgepodge of characters with winter outfits over the years. More in the modern era than probably the vintage line. But there's never really been a definitive, like, here's a whole wave of them. You would just get, once in a blue moon, they'd be like, oh, we've thrown out a Toys R Us exclusive, and it's a Doc figure, and he's in a winter outfit. So you just kind of have to cobble some figures together here and there. They never made like a winter set G.I. Joe.
Okay, that makes sense. I like the design. They look like angry elves. Like Santa's A-Team.
That's right. So let's stroll on into this bad boy. The very top, they have summarized the mission of the G.I. Joe team from the previous issue now, and it reads as so. Quartered in top-secret armored underground bunkers, deep beneath the Army Chaplain's Assistant School at Fort Wadsworth, New Jersey, is the most fearsome rapid deployment team of all, America's elite counter-terrorist strike force, G.I. Joe, a real American hero. So, as we said from the top blurb, the name of this story is Panic at the North Pole, and it opens up with a team of characters that are investigating a research station that's been wiped out. They lost contact with the station a week ago, and because of the severe weather conditions, they weren't able to get to them any earlier than now. So they're just now finding this place, and they're discovering that it's pretty much a wreck. So they're kind of baffled because these guys are kind of out in the North Polar ice cap on their own. The next settlement is 100 miles away, and that settlement is Russian. So they're like, who would do this so overtly, and why? So they make the call to pull in some outside members of the team to go investigate, and they decide that this is the first time that we see a more localized team, whereas in the first issue it was like every person was on the ground. Now we see that there are specific members of the team that are better utilized in different scenarios. So everybody's on leave right now, So they put out the call to call in the four members that are will be the most useful in this situation. And the first person we see is Stalker, who we see has elk. Is that an elk?
I honestly don't know.
It has horns.
I'd say like maybe a deer.
Yeah, maybe.
I
Or a
don't
buck.
know.
I don't know.
There you go.
I don't know.
I'm not a hunter.
There's no farm wisdom on this show.
No, you would think I would, considering where I live, but no.
So you can see that Stalker's got this. We'll go with Buck.
That sounds great. I like it.
In his crosshairs, he's zoning in on it, and then the chopper shows up and is to bring him in. So he's like, they're like E5, Lonzo Wilkinson, codename Stalker. General Flag has canceled your leave, and it's revealed that he wasn't actually trying to shoot. He was just doing nature photography.
Can I just say that his reply here to General Flag has canceled your leave is I'm gonna steal it. He just says, "Yeah, I'm about to cancel your face."
He also says, "I've been tracking that stag." So I guess a stag is the technical term we were looking for there. If you had stag on the board, please give yourself 5 flag points at this time. So back at the computer lab at MIT, we see that Breaker is running a crystalline fracture point program, and the ladies appear to be pretty into that. Yes, even in the 80s, computer nerds were big womanizers. It's known. It's a known fact. If my youth is any statistical evidence, this is definitely not fiction. So these ladies are like, oh, let's invite him for coffee in the commissary, and then they turn around and there's a big message on the computer that says, leave canceled, report to pit, ... flag. I'm sure these two women didn't look at that and go, oh, what's the pit? Who's General Flag? Oh, we've cracked the code. Kill these two women.
What was their plan here? Like, were they gonna both like have like a 90s rom-com situation? Like, both try to win his affection?
Maybe.
It just seems strange that they're both like, yes, let's invite him for drinks.
Why don't we both invite him down to the commissary?
See who he likes more.
She's like trails off like I could manage to get lost in his dashing computer knowledge. So, skip forward to the San Diego Civic Arena where Scarlett is in a martial arts tournament, and it looks like she has just got a half point with 30 seconds remaining in the match. And this gentleman walks up in the middle of the match and calls her by her code name and says, I'm under orders from General Flag to escort you back to your duty station. Your leave has been canceled. She says she's shocked to find out that Flag has called her in and asks if he couldn't have waited until she made the point. But Scarlett's opponent is not ready to give in so easily as she charges from behind. And Scarlett gives the old karate kick to the face, a good thwack, and that's that. And that is obviously the figure that I was talking about that's included in that 3-pack.
It seems like they are very loosey-goose with code names and information here.
They do speak a lot in the open.
Like, he just walks up. I mean, look at that crowd behind him, and he says her full name and code name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess at this time, I mean, you have to remember, this is the second issue. There's literally and Larry is known for developing plot as he goes. So maybe the concept that they were really like hush hush, or that, I mean, we haven't established, does the general public know about G.I. Joe? Like how public are they, basically? Anyway, one team member to go. At the Columbia University basement in the isolation tank lab, another officer enters, and the guy that's watching over the lab says, hey, you can't just barge in here. This is intolerable. You have no jurisdiction. And the officer says, don't cross me, mister. I've had a rough day. Okay, Mr. Rank Classified Snake Eyes. Your leave is canceled, so you can pull your wet little butt out of there. And so Snake Eyes emerges from the isolation chamber and obviously is not wearing his outfit. And the officer is shocked because he sees his face and is taken back. This is interesting because this is the first time that we learned that Snake Eyes has disfigured. It's likely that till this panel or this page was written, that wasn't the case. I don't think the figure was designed with that in mind. And it's interesting because it's such an iconic characteristic of Snake Eyes to this day. So anyway, that's a first. We find out that Snake Eyes has got some kind of quote-unquote hideous disfiguration.
Now, how long would it be before he is revealed? Because, They don't show it. They just leave that to your imagination. How long and was that something that they kind of immediately just kept playing on, or was that or was this one of those things where they're like, "Hey, we'll come back to this."
They draw it out for quite a while.
Okay.
It's something that's brought up a lot in the earlier issues. We got about, this is a ballpark, so don't hit me up with those emails, but we got about 92 issues to go before we start to really learn the truth behind the mask.
Ah, okay.
Don't read ahead, Jaren. I want to experience that for the first time with you.
Oh, don't worry. I'm so excited to experience this at the same time. So we'll see.
The guys that run the facility are like, don't worry about it. We've grown accustomed to his appearance. He spends up to 8 hours at a time in that total sensory deprivation unit. And that's pretty classic Snake Eyes. You would have to assume that that's akin to meditation, for someone that's trained like he is. So later, over the Arctic, the team is on a plane. They are getting quasi-debriefed on the way there. And they still don't know what's happened at the research station. They're depending on them to go in there, and he says, I cannot stress this enough. This is a reconnaissance mission. Your primary objective is observation. Do not initiate any contact with the opposition. If you're fired upon, withdraw in an orderly manner, and contact the command center for further instructions. You have to remember that this book came out in 82, and so ties with Russia are pretty thin. So the idea that they don't want to enter into a conflict with them makes more sense from that light, that they don't want to start anything they can't get back out of. So Breaker's been issued a new communications rig, which has the capability of sending and receiving teleprints, relay visual intelligence as you gather it. We will forward any new data as you need it. Secondary mission is retrieval of the missing records from the research station. I don't care how you get them as long as you don't compromise the primary mission. In other words, don't get caught. Or dropping you within marching distance of the Russian station, and they parachute out. So they hit the ground, and they set up you can see that they've set up a little tent that's like a white sheet, so they'll blend in with the snow. So they set up a blind to dig in under cover of what they call the powder flurry, and they are taking a look at the Russian station to see what's cooking. You can see in this last panel that they have like the sickle flag of Russia flying on their thing to designate, hey, we are Russians.
Yep, got to make sure we know who the Russians are.
Yep, this says we might be in for a long wait. Those Russian Quonset huts are buttoned up tighter than a clam with lockjaw. That's some good, man. That is not something that you come up with on the spot. They're probably sitting with their feet on a hot stove, sipping tea and munching caviar. So they sit for 6 hours. You can see that they're taking photographs here in this top panel. And then suddenly, someone begins to come across the ice. Impossible. Aside from the American station, the nearest settlement is 1,000 miles away. And who is it? Well, it's an Eskimo with a dog sled.
And a cool necklace.
No Eskimo gets lost 1,000 miles worth. Besides, what do you hunt with a 30 cal belt-fed machine gun? So this is our first look at Quinn the Eskimo. Now, like many characters from this era, Quinn is a character that was created by Larry to kind of fill out the roster as needed. Certainly in this scenario, he was looking for a mercenary, and that wasn't directly tethered to Cobra. So this is who he created. Now, if you've seen our recapped episode on our YouTube channel, you'll know that even 155 issues later, Quinn is a character that is still relevant and still referenced, but ultimately has a short window of being truly involved in the story. Having said that, still a pretty great character and an interesting sort of third party, as we'll learn his behaviors and beliefs. So for those of you that are only listening, Quinn is also dressed in a snow outfit. He does have a 30 cal belt-filled machine gun on his back. He's got 2 ammo clips. He wears a necklace of skulls around his neck. That is a very defining trademark for him. So Quinn strolls into the hut just like he owns the place and comes right back out and then leaves back towards the coast. So the Joes are kind of left baffled as to where did he come from and where's he going. But the bigger question is, why did he leave the front door open? So they decide, well, if there's nobody home, we can't initiate contact with the opposition. And besides, it's got to be warmer in there than out here. So they set up outside and they charge in, and everybody's frozen alive. They are all dead. The Russian scientists are all dead, frozen stiff. By the looks of it, they've been this way for at least a week. Poor devils, their heating unit must have conked out. Breaker is taking a look at the electronic set and says, hey, this setup here is for long-range, ultra-low frequency beam transmission. That's a biologic frequency that can affect human brainwaves. I don't know. That's a lot of tech speak, but I'm willing to believe that Breaker knows it when he sees it.
Yeah, I'll say that.
But there's a key part missing: the frequency modulator. So obviously, it's easy to surmise that Quinn is in fact the person that's taken that. And in addition to that, their safe has been rifled. So it's a safe bet that he got the American records as well as the Russians. Snake Eyes fires off his gun to alert everybody that there's something up as he has spotted an explosive device underneath the table. He kicks it over to show them, and they beat feet to get out of there before the explosion. The tent explodes, or their base. I don't guess that's really a tent. And the Joes are kind of set back by how professional the Eskimo was in fighting them. So they surmise that he's got to be working for the Russians. And they probably brought him in by plane. But if they're really going to play it safe, they'll be picking him up by submarine. And that's why he's headed for the coast. So they take the film that they shot from the cover, and they have Breaker radio teleprint it. I have no idea what that technology that is. I'm sure it's some 80s stuff that seemed very fancy then. See if he can get a make on Quinn, and decide to not wait for a reply. They are going to actively pursue.
It's like a fax machine on his back.
I know, right? I'm sure that was extremely modern at the time.
It's cool because it looks almost identical to like a file card.
You're right, it does. So they start running. They're running after him. Many miles later, they get a response on the teleprinter, and they have a dossier on Quinn the Eskimo. And we can see that Quinn is suspected an alias, real name unknown, which is interesting because I guess that kind of get washed away because he's never known by anything other than Quinn. Not a ton of information on this dossier. They don't know his date of birth or where he was born. They have his height at 6'10", which is huge. 260 pounds.
I feel like 6'10", 260 is not as big as he actually is. I feel like he's got to have some more pounds.
I mean, I guess in comic book world, it's definitely not.
I feel like if that was Batman at 6'10", he'd be like, at that size, he'd be like 400 pounds.
You might be right. He's a very wide-looking character. Quinn's occupation is a freelance special ops enforcer. Has worked for the CIA, Mossad, KGB, MI6, and other security agencies. His special skills include expert tracker, hunter, woodsman, speaks English, Russian, French, Finnish, German, and 3 Inuit dialects. Expert with rifle, pistol, longbow, harpoon, and plastic explosives. Quinn's personality profile says, subject never lies, always fulfills contractual obligations to the letter, and will not divulge any information about former employers or operations for any reason. That's incredibly specific to this story.
It's almost like they did foreshadowing there.
Subject never lies is not something you see a lot on a personality profile.
It's like, yeah, he's very truthful. I mean, he might murder people, and he won't tell you what you need to know, but he won't lie about it.
Subject was heavily influenced by Jim Carrey movie Liar Liar and has taken it as a new life strategy. Scarlet observes that this guy has all the earmarks of the most dreaded of all antagonists, the highly motivated individual. Stalker realizes that it's about as dark as it can get up here at this time of year. Quinn will have to make camp soon. If we double time it all the way, we might catch up to him before he starts up again. 5 hours later, gosh, poor guys. 5 hours later, they catch up to Quinn, who is set afire, and he's using a plane kind of as his base of operation. It looks like they scuffed it up on the landing, and one of the wings is damaged, so he is huddled up around that. Quinn's file didn't mention flight training, so the crew is curious where's the pilot and the navigator. So they decide to move in on him, and as they poke the blanket that's covering Quinn, it's revealed that it's all C4 plastic explosives set up to look like a man, which is very creative. And the arts and crafts expert himself kicks out the door of the plane and confronts the team. Very good, you arrived sooner than I expected. This is a fail-safe remote detonator. If I release my grip on it, there will be a 50-foot crater where we now stand. Drop your weapons. They are of no further use to you. So Quinn starts to do the old James Bond plan layout and kind of fill in the gaps of the story that they weren't able to figure out up to this point. Did you know that the Russians were using their research station to beam low-frequency fear waves at the U.S. in an experiment to induce mass paranoia? The shielding on their transmitter leaked, and the Russian crew became quite paranoid. They thought the Americans were spying on them, so they killed them. When their heater broke down, they were too far gone to fix it. I was hired to retrieve the American records and the Russian frequency modulator and to destroy the evidence. The crew of this plane is waiting for me at a base camp by the sea, where a sub will pick us up at precisely noon tomorrow. So he takes their guns. He destroys that nice printer that they made such a big deal about. Scarlet says, "Why are you telling us all this? According to your dossier, you've never divulged one iota of information to a single living person." Snake Eyes gives the old, "Hey, shut up. Just quit talking." Because they're as good as dead, basically. So Quinn feels like there's no reason to hold back that information. "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die." Quinn says, "The Shadow Man has the eyes of a shaman. He sees the spirits of snow and ice gazing at his soul like a hungry bear. Buddy, if you like these old Quinn-isms, better buckle in, because he is ripe with them."
I love him. I would just sit and listen to him talk. It would be just real entertaining.
Yeah, he could open up a nice YouTube ASMR channel. So, no supplies, no radio. Bye! Quinn hits the road with his wolf pack and leaves the Joes stranded. So they think, well, if we start back right now, we might stand a chance of getting back to the American Research Station. Stoker says, "Nope, we're going to go after him. And this is what we have to do." Cut to them disassembling the plane in a variety of ways to get functioning parts from it. The compass is still valid. The navigator's table's got maps of the sector they're in. Snake Eyes has got the landing skis dismantled. Stalker takes apart the lightweight passenger seats. Parachutes are intact. Blah, 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 blah. All of that to say that we built a very small sled thingy with a little parachute. They call it an ice boat, which I'm sure is a real thing that I have no experience with. So they sail on a course at a slight angle to his, keeping well out of sight. We'll tact over before we reach the sea, intersect his route, and lay our ambush. They bring the explosives, even though they don't have the detonator caps, at Snake Eyes' insistence. He says, "I can't always figure out what he's got planned, but he's always got a good reason for doing anything." True words never spoken from about the old Shadow Man. So the passage under the ice bridge is Quinn's most direct route to the coast, and it's a perfect spot to plant the explosives if we have something to detonate them with. And Snake Eyes goes, "Hey, look what I got." Well, he doesn't say that, obviously, but he's got 2 loaded clips of ammo in his boot, which they can use for the detonation. So they empty the primers and powder into the canteen cup. I just want to say that this issue is a prime example of how much military detail goes into, especially these early issues of G.I. Joe. Mm-hmm. Not simply in terms of creativity, but in terms of stuff that I don't know if it's possible or not. I'm like, well, I mean, okay, I guess you could take the gunpowder out of a bullet, put it into a canteen cup, and then drop a 200-pound slab of ice on it, and that sets off a small explosion that would detonate the plastic explosives. I mean, okay. I can't find any flaw in it.
I definitely can't prove it wrong, so I'm going to go with it.
So all that stuff I just said, that's what they do. Quinn comes underneath this ice bridge. They drop this slab of ice on the canteen. It detonates the explosives and buries everybody in the snow. They run after him to get him, and they try to capture the dogs as well, because obviously they need that to retreat. But Quinn does not fall for such an obvious ruse. So he pulls his gun out, and they go hand to hand with him. Scarlet gives her the old karate kick that we saw earlier and kicks him in the head from behind. But we know Quinn's literal physical stats, and he is not knocked down by that. So he knocks her down. Snake Eyes was holding out on another ammo clip, snaps it into his weapon, which is sitting on Quinn's little sled. But surprise, surprise, Quinn is another step ahead, as he has pulled all the firing pins out of their guns and is wearing them on his skull necklace. His weasel skull necklace. "I took these pins from your weapons as a charm against death by gunfire. Not so lucky for you, huh? Soon the spirits of snow and ice will devour your souls. This is sad, for you are brave fighters." Quinn shows regret as having taken the assignment from the Russians because they are tampering with fear, and fear is the greatest killer of all, greater than snow or ice. This frequency modulator is a concentrated nugget of fear, waiting to pollute the world with distrust and loathing. I feel that the only way to neutralize it is to give it to you, but I can't. A contract is a contract to the letter of the word. If only there was some other way. So, cut to 1 hour later. The gentlemen that were to meet Quinn have met him, and they are surprised to see that he's a full 2 hours early. I wanted time to count by payment, Quinn says. It's in gold, of course. Of course, you have the Americaneski. Is that how?
I guess that's Russian.
I guess. And our low frequency modulator. The research station has been destroyed and the American G.I. Joe team has been neutralized. Then if you will attest to the fulfillment of my contract, I shall be on my way. The Russians are pleased and say, you've done well, Comrade Quinn, but aren't you going to wait for the sub? Quinn says, no, I want to be far away when the G.I. Joe team arrives here. I abhor senseless violence. And of course, the Russians are shocked because you stay here and protect us until the submarine arrives. You have a contract with us. Quinn says, no, you just said the contract's done. The job's ended. So the Russians are like, well, you've aided the Americans to betray us. Quinn says, nope, I've done nothing but hindered them in every possible way. I left them 5 miles from here. No firing pins. However, I did stop 1 mile from here, and I left my weasel skull necklace as an offering to the spirits of ice and snow that fear might vanish from the world. Perhaps if you found it before they did, you might dispel my prayer. They are 4 miles from it to your 1 mile, but they are trackers, and you are not. Cut to the team has already got the necklace, and that means they have their firing pins, and that means those Russians are goners.
Oh, I love it.
The end.
Hey, he completed his contract. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah, so, and that's very interesting. You get to see that there's a kind of another side to Quinn. Quinn is not only a great opponent, he's very tactical, he's very smart, outthinks him at every step, but does have a sense of loyalty, and he has morals. Like, he knows this thing that he's agreed to get is bad, so he kind of tries to find a loophole in his own contract so he doesn't defeat his own honor system, but at the same time can kind of sleep at night. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like he kind of plays both sides somehow.
Mm-hmm. Great. This is a great issue.
That photo at the very end, the one of the 4 right there, that's amazing. I love it.
You can just look at that and you just see the determination on their face. How they're like, we're gonna make this right. Like, we're gonna
Breaker's got his
no matter
gun.
what. Yeah.
In sub-zero temperatures.
So that brings us to the end of G.I. Joe number 2. I do think this is a really good issue. I like that it focuses on unique members of the team. We kind of learn a little bit more about the dynamic of how the team works when they're in a smaller faction, and everybody carries their weight here. I do feel like this is the first drop in the bucket of the Snake Eyes is the MVP, because he bails them out a lot. In this, I feel like, but it's still great, and I love Quinn. The character of Quinn is great. The stuff to come with him is even better. There's some story arcs that have him in it that are absolutely defining to these early issues, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like the kind of contained story. While yes, it does have a large there's large ramifications if the Russians get that, but it's a pretty contained story, and it's just dealing with these few characters. I like Quinn. I can't wait to see him show back up, give more fun sayings that make sense-ish.
Yeah. We got a little bit of an intermission before Quinn will be back up, and we have a lot of other new exciting characters on the horizon that we're getting ready to get introduced to. So, and I'm looking forward to that. I really enjoy rereading these issues. It's not often that I reread the single-digit issues of G.I. Joe, not for any particular reason, other than a lot of times if I'm looking to read something quick, I'll pick some of my more preferred story arcs and kind of burn through them when the team was a little bit more robust. So a reread at this level of detail has been a lot of fun. It's very exciting for me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I like that we made a sequel to something now, so check that off the list.
Yep, and we will continue to burn through these issues as we go through all of our other content as well. Obviously, this will be a long journey, but we got plenty of time. So thanks for joining us. And I hope you'll join us on this journey as we go back through the entire Marvel run. Reading these issues is always very It's always very eye-opening and a very insightful look into the development of the brand and the origins of some of our favorite characters.
Yeah, it's great to get a chance to learn. It's been crazy. We started this with the intention of me learning, and we've experienced kind of another rebirth of the Joe, line with toys and things like that, and now another movie coming out. So everything's kind of going off, and it's nice to kind of get a chance to kind of go back and see the rebirth, of what became modern Joe.
Yeah, I think in terms of like learning the history of the characters, the going through the comics, even as slow as we are, is still the best way to learn the most. With maybe the file cards being a close second, and obviously the cartoon as well. But the cartoon has a lot of alternate facts that you have to kind of weigh against each other in terms of what you consider to be your own personal continuity. So anyway, that's going to do it for us. I didn't plug anything. Let's do that. You can find us on social media on Twitter or Instagram at Anything Joe's Pod. Search for our YouTube channel under Anything Joe's as well, where we have lots of figure reviews, and all these podcasts are available there as well. And join our Facebook group, which is getting close to the 500 member mark, and we have a lot of exciting things planned for that. We're going to do a giveaway, and we're going to kind of just celebrate, because 500 users is an awful lot of members, more than I thought we would ever see, and we're both very excited about it, and we appreciate everyone that's already joined, and we look forward to those of you that will join in the future. And speaking of the future, that's where our next episode is, and I hope you'll join us there next time, where anything's available for discussion here on Anything Joe's.